Welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner trying to completely master the map, you're exactly where you need to be. We're doing a high-yield geographical analysis today. Think of this as your ultimate cheat sheet. We're taking literally over 100 pages of super dense facts, data, and spatial relationships and distilling them into one rapid-fire, interconnected journey. We'll start way zoomed out with the macro forces shaping our planet and then zoom all the way down into the micro-terrain of India.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our macro to micro roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with planetary waters, specifically the oceans and marginal seas, before moving up into the atmosphere to look at global wind systems. From there, we're mapping out humanity itself by tracking global population and migration trends. Next up, we'll see how the world is coming together through environmental summits. And finally, we'll execute our final zoom in on the complex mountain ranges of India.
Section 1. Oceans and marginal seas, the planet's boundaries.
So let's clear up those marginal seas that always seem to cause a bit of confusion. When you're looking at the massive Pacific Ocean, you really need to lock in the Bering Sea and the South China Sea. And hey, fun fact, the South China Sea actually holds the title for the largest marginal sea in the entire world. Meanwhile, way up in the freezing north, the Kara Sea and the Beaufort Sea act as absolutely crucial extensions of the Arctic Ocean. Honestly, just categorizing these marginal seas by their parent ocean is the absolute best trick to anchor them perfectly in your memory.
Section 2. Global wind systems, the Earth's breath.
Because the Earth is spinning incredibly fast right at the equator, the air there gets heated and basically just rises vertically instead of moving horizontally. This creates a massive low-pressure zone called the doldrums, or the calm belt, sitting right between 0 and 10 degrees latitude. Back in the day, sailors absolutely dreaded this zone because their ships would literally just stall out in the water. Now, when that rising air eventually cools off and drops back down at higher latitudes, it creates intense high-pressure zones. Ships caught in these totally windless, high-pressure areas sometimes had to throw heavy cargo overboard, and tragically, that even included horses, just to lighten the load and catch a breeze. That's exactly why those areas are famously called the horse latitudes. It's just a wild connection between atmospheric physics and human history, isn't it?
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Earth's rotation dictates weather patterns. Thanks to the Coriolis force, winds don't just blow straight down. In the northern hemisphere, trade winds get deflected so they blow from the northeast down towards the southwest. And in the southern hemisphere, they mirror this completely, blowing from the southeast up towards the northwest. Being able to visualize these opposing directional arrows is basically your master key to understanding global weather and ancient historical trade routes.
Section 3. Global population breakdown, humanity on the map.
Now, take a look at the staggering imbalance of global population distribution. It's wild to think about, but a massive 60% of the entire human race lives on just one continent, and that's Asia. Africa holds about 18%, the Americas roughly 13%, and Europe is sitting at 9.5%. Contrast all of that with Australia down there, which makes up a mere 0.5% of the global population. This definitely isn't just trivia. This dictates exactly where human energy, consumption, and economic growth are heavily concentrated today.
Knowing exactly how that massive population is distributed by country is also crucial. India has officially taken the #1 spot now, boasting roughly 1.46 billion people, with China right behind it at 1.41 billion. But then notice this huge drop-off. You've got the US at 340 million, Indonesia at 280 million, and Pakistan at 250 million. If you're trying to memorize global demographics, locking in this exact descending order is an absolute must.
Section 4. Global migration trends, a world in motion.
Now, this is a huge figure. Roughly 300 million people are currently international migrants. To put that into perspective, that equates to about 3.6 to 3.7% of the entire global population living outside their country of birth. Obviously, humanity has always been on the move, but the sheer scale of this modern mobility is completely unprecedented.
When we break down the demographics of this moving population, it's actually incredibly balanced. 52% of international migrants are male and 48% are female. This nearly even gender split tells us something really important. It means migration isn't just a single demographic moving for temporary work. It involves whole families, highly diverse professionals, and massive broad societal shifts. But when we look at exactly why people are moving, the data paints a very clear picture. 59% of these migrants, which is roughly 160 million people, are specifically classified as labor migrants. Make no mistake, the primary driver of global movement today is for sure the search for employment, better wages, and greater economic opportunity.
So, where is everyone going? Well, the United States remains the undisputed top destination country for migrants globally, followed by Germany and then Saudi Arabia. And you've got to notice the specific corridors they take. The Mexico to US route is the single largest migration corridor in the whole world. However, if we're looking at the origin of migrants overall, India actually takes the top spot. They're sending millions of people globally, especially to places like the United Arab Emirates.
Section 5. Environmental Summits, Protecting the Stage.
This timeline beautifully maps out our major environmental milestones over the years. It all kicked off back in 1972 in Stockholm, Sweden, with the very first Global Environmental Summit. And actually, that's exactly why we celebrate World Environmental Day on June 5th. Then, in 1987, the Montreal Protocol successfully moved to protect the ozone layer. Fast forward to today, and the focus is pretty much entirely on climate change. Looking ahead, COP30 in 2025 will be held in Belém, Brazil. People are already calling it the Amazon COP because it sits right at the gateway to the rainforest, carrying the absolutely critical goal of limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Right after that, COP31 in 2026 is slated for Turkey.
Section 6. India's Mountain Ranges, the Micro View.
Okay, let's execute our final zoom in. We're starting at the very top of the country, with the Trans-Himalayan ranges. When you're mapping this out north to south, getting the sequence right is critical. First up, you have the mighty Karakoram Range. Moving south, you hit the Ladakh Range, and then the Zanskar Range. Step just below that into Jammu and Kashmir, and you run into the Pir Panjal Range. Visualizing this vertical, north-to-south layout is an essential map skill you've got to master.
So, the really crucial point here is how these mountainous borders create some extremely famous valleys. The breathtaking Kashmir Valley is nestled right between the Pir Panjal and Zanskar ranges, directly within the Great Himalayas. And the Kathmandu Valley in Nepal is situated similarly. However, if you travel down to Dehradun, you're sitting a bit lower in elevation, specifically resting right between the Shivalik Range and the Middle Himalayas. Being able to correctly place these valleys within their mountainous borders really makes that 2D map pop into a 3D landscape in your mind.
Moving over to the northeast of India, we hit a seriously high-yield area for geographical trivia. Up in Arunachal Pradesh, you've got the Dafla, Miri, Abor, and Mishmi Hills. Drop down into Assam, and you'll find the Makir, Ringma, and Barail Hills. Then there's Meghalaya, which is super famous for the Garo, Khasi, and Jayantia Hills. Finally, all the way down in Mizoram, you have the Mizo Hills, crowned by the beautiful Blue Mountain Peak. Grouping these strictly by state is hands down the best way to commit them to memory.
To conclude our terrain tour, we're landing right in the heart of central India with the Satpura Ranges. Now, just like we charted the Himalayas vertically, we need to chart the Satpuras horizontally, mapping them firmly from west to east. On the westernmost edge, you start with the Rajpipla Hills. As you move east, you transition into the main Satpura Range, then the Mahadeo Hills, and you finally cap off the easternmost edge with the Maiko Range. And the Maiko Range is incredibly vital to remember because it features the Amarkantak Peak, which happens to be the birthplace of major rivers like the Narmada and Son.
Wow, we have covered incredible ground in this explainer today. We've gone from the fierce doldrums of the oceans to the absolute highest peaks of the Himalayas and looked at the staggering 300 million humans moving between them. But I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If billions of people continue to migrate and global populations dramatically shift, how will the physical boundaries and fragile environments we just mapped survive the next century? The map of the Earth isn't just some static drawing, it's a living, breathing system. Thank you so much for joining me today and keep exploring.